Abarigani and Hotep family, I am Assad Malik. I'm the editor of PanAfricanAlliance.com, and for the most part, I write the majority of the articles that you see there. If there are two things that I know, it's this. Number one, you don't always have time to read a 3,000 word long article that I am famous for dropping. And number two, you don't want somebody to just read the article to you. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to read these articles for you. That way you can listen to the article instead of having to read it. You can do so on your own terms. So you can be at the gym listening to this, on a walk, or wherever you happen to be, and you'll still get most of the information contained in the article. Now, there are some links and there are some other resources that you're going to need to go to the article for. But this will help you absorb that information that you might not get otherwise. So I'm not just going to read this article out to you. I'm going to put my own twist, and it's going to be colloquial, and I'm going to insert some personality into it, but I guarantee you're still going to get the information. So this reading is for African spirituality, and you can find it by going to PanAfricanAlliance.com and either just doing a search, hit that search icon for African spirituality, or typing in African-spirituality. So what is spirituality? I think that's a question that we all should be doing a better job at answering in the conscious community. And so spirituality is the state of your soul, your emotions, your beliefs, your mindset, your connection to the infinite. And that's what spirituality is. It isn't necessarily dogma, which we're going to talk about in just a second. And religions tend to run on dogma. These factors like your soul, your emotions, your beliefs, your mindset, your connection to the infinite, they make up what we call your spiritual anatomy. In some conscious circles, it's also called your light body. And going forward, that's what we're going to call it here. Your light body is your spiritual anatomy. And just like your physical body, your spiritual anatomy has its parts, and it can grow stronger or weaker based on your actions. So let's get a little deeper into what the difference is between religion and spirituality. And again, family, this is the subject of a lot of debate in our conscious community. If you ask 5 people what religion or spirituality is, you'll get 5 different answers. They are different things, despite what some will tell you. Religion is a system designed for spiritual development. So remember earlier I said that your light body can be made stronger or weaker based on what you do. Well, religions are the training programs for your light body designed to make you stronger. At least that's what they should be. Some religions are better than others at achieving this goal. A lot of our brothers and sisters, for instance, are going to the Ayurvedic traditions, and these are the traditions you find in India. There's a lot of talk of chakra balancing and yoga and the spiritual connection that you get by practicing some of these Ayurvedic traditions. But all these traditions came from Africa, and if you want those traditions and what they're able to do in their purest form, you got to go back to the source. Don't try to borrow a copy from a copy from a copy from a copy that all copied it from your African roots. I think we can all agree that today some religions have become so corrupted that they do absolutely nothing for spiritual development. Instead, these religions have become systems of indoctrination. And that's where the dogma comes into play. And that ends up creating divisions between believers and non-believers, divisions within the conscious community. So instead of getting caught up in those dogmas taught by Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and other spiritual systems, I want you to return to your African roots. Now, this isn't a place where we're going to debate about the African origins of Christianity and the impact of Islam on the African diaspora, but we're going to talk about studying the Yoruba, the Kemetic, and the Vundun traditions. Because with this newfound knowledge, along with other spiritual practices like meditation and fasting, you'll be on the fast track to spiritual development and ultimately enlightenment. So let's start by talking about studying African religions. Someone asked me, is it possible for you to develop your spirituality without religion? And the answer is absolutely. But to do so, you've got to take responsibility for your own education and growth. Look, family, it's like this. When you go to the gym, you can take 2 approaches. You can find a coach, and if that coach has proven results, they can shorten the amount of time it takes for you to achieve results. Or you can do the research, put together a training program, and get into the gym and hit it yourself, and you may get the same results. All right, so that's what we're talking about here. If you're not able to find a trainer, a spiritual mentor, or a religion that can get you the results that you need, it's up to you to do the research, put together a plan, and practice that plan. And that's what this article is meant to achieve. So that means studying indigenous African religions and applying the lessons that speak to you. A big part of the mission of the Pan-African Alliance is to create spaces to have discussions about concepts like African spirituality, and to do that, we hold these regular community meetings. Once upon a time, they were called Sunday sessions, and they were just a conference call. And on the article, on the page where this article is published, I have a video of one of those where we talk about African spirituality and the 5 parts of the Kemetic soul. All right. And of course, we know that there are 9 parts of the Kemetic soul, but because of time, we had to shorten it to 5. And there's a discussion later on about the other 4. So we know that there are hundreds of major African religions on the continent. And, you know, some of the most well known are Baluba, Ishu, you have Ifa, you have Opele, you have Zulu mythology, Yoruba traditions, Vundu, San, and Shango. There's a whole list on the page where we published this article. But when we use the term African religions, we're also referring to the spiritual systems developed by Africans outside of the continent. Some of those systems include the Nuwaubian system, the Nation of Islam, the 5 Percenters, otherwise known as the Nation of Gods and Earths, Santeria, and the Moorish science teachings. There are elements of truth in all these spiritual systems, and family, your path could lie in any one of these, or maybe none of them at all. It's therefore your mission to find the path that speaks to you most truthfully, and then walk that path unapologetically. So if you choose to walk the path of a 5 percenter, then walk that path unapologetically. If you choose to become a Moor, then become a Moor and rock your fez unapologetically. And along your journey, you will either confirm or disprove the truth of that system within yourself. And when you know the truth for yourself, you can't be lied to. So there are 5 books that I recommend everybody read that relate to African spirituality. And those books are, of course, the Pert M. Heru. The Pert M. Heru is one of those books that we're learning a lot about recently. It was translated originally as it was called the original Egyptian Book of the Dead. We know that the appropriate translation is the Book of Coming Forth by Day, the Pert M. Heru, the Book of Coming into Enlightenment. So this isn't a book for the dead, it's a book for the living. And you can find out where to get that book by going to panafricanalliance.com/African-spirituality. Second book that I recommend is Introduction to African Religions by a warrior scholar named John Mbiti. Third book, African Origins of Major Western Civilizations by our ancestor, Baba Yosef Ben Yochanan, peace be upon him. And then finally, I highly recommend the Handbook of Yoruba Religious Concepts because it breaks down the traditions of Ifa better than any other book that I've read. Now, there's also Knowledge of Self. Knowledge of Self is a book on the wisdom of the 5 Percenters. So if you are new to the conscious community, you're interested in the perspectives of the 5% philosophy, start there. It's a great read, really easy to read. It's written by a number of 5 Percenters, members of the Nation of Gods and Earths, that give you an excellent introduction to their philosophy. So that's number 1. You've got to educate yourself if you plan on developing your African spirituality on your own. And it never hurts to find a spiritual mentor, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the knowledge for yourself. And be promiscuous with what you're consuming, all right? So if you've just stepped out of Christianity, or even if you are a devout Christian or Muslim or whatever path that you've chosen to walk, it doesn't hurt for you to understand where other brothers and sisters are coming from. So be promiscuous about the spiritual systems that you read about. Dip into Nuwapu, dip into Islam and read the Quran. Dip into all of these other spiritual systems, and along the way, certain principles, certain spiritual elements will start to speak to you. Pick those tools up and use them. Look, some of you all, going back to my physical analogy, y'all can get swole doing bench presses and squats. Other people, those exercises do nothing for them. It's all about the person and their makeup, and you have a very unique spiritual anatomy, the same way that you have a very unique physical anatomy. Okay, So the second thing I want you to do is I want you to meditate. Meditation is one of the most powerful ways to develop your African spirituality. You must meditate. There is no exception. The oldest Aboriginal cultures of the earth used meditation as a tool for spiritual fortification. You should be doing the same thing. Every religion uses meditation for spiritual development in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, if you want to get deeper into meditation, we've written a long and extensive article on all the different types of meditation that you can use to develop yourself spiritually. And you can find that link by, again, going to PanAfricanAlliance.com. One of the third things that I want you to do to develop your African spirituality is fasting. Fasting isn't only fantastic for your body, but from what research has shown, it could be the single greatest natural healing therapy missing from today's Western lifestyle. So by abstaining from solid food for an extended period of time, you can start to develop more emotional balance. Your ability to absorb energy is improved from the food that you eat. Detoxifying your body happens more naturally. And while those results might not seem related to developing your African spirituality, family, they absolutely are. Here's why and here's how. Number one, I mentioned that fasting develops emotional balance, right? And when we look at the Western diet, we see that this is a diet that is full of processed foods and sugar. It's those two elements, and the fact that foods are processed and they're so high in sugar, that have been linked to depression and other mental illnesses. Your mental state, your emotional health, those are all parts of your spiritual anatomy, your light body. So since those emotions are part of your light body, your emotional stability should be developed along with the rest of your spiritual anatomy. The foods that you eat can either stabilize or destroy your emotions. So by fasting, you give your body and your soul the opportunity to rest and reset itself. And once your body is cleaned of those toxins, then those causes of emotional instability are gone, and that puts you back in control. As a sidebar, when we think about Buddhist temples, Shaolin temples, when we think about monks of European traditions and any other place, ashrams, etc., where you go for spiritual development, there are always dietary restrictions put into place. There's a reason for that. One of the other benefits of fasting is it gives you more energy, because when your body isn't breaking down food to use as energy, it starts breaking down fat. That's the whole idea behind a diet called the ketogenic diet that's becoming pretty popular now. But those elements are built into the melanin diet as well. Again, do a search. But that process increases your metabolism, the process of your body using fat instead of food for energy. That increases your metabolism by anywhere from 3 to 14%. After a few days of the fast, higher levels of endorphins start to appear in your blood, and that makes you more alert. It gives you an overall feeling of general mental well-being. That enhances your light body. Now, let me warn you about this. It's going to take you about 3 to 5 days before you start feeling those effects, those endorphins. So I need you to push through days 1 and 2. In fact, the first 72 hours are going to leave you feeling sluggish and weak. For me personally, I use moringa and other heavy green or African teas to help me while I get through those first 3 days. And moringa's filled with tons of B vitamins, so it'll provide you with energy. It'll provide you with a lot of the benefits that you're going to get later on in fasting. If you want a list of the other 4 teas that I drink, the other 4 African teas that I recommend, we've written an article on that too. I'm not editing these readings, make them more real, you understand me? But yeah, family, fasting is going to give you more energy, and I also mentioned that it detoxifies your body. So detoxification is your body's process of eliminating the toxins that you eat, drink, and breathe, and that happens through your colon, your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, and even your skin. So since those organs aren't constantly working overtime to eliminate the toxins that you're eating through that Western diet, they have time to clean themselves out and then to start regenerating new tissue, regenerating new cells. It's a beautiful thing. So what I want you to do is, if you're new to fasting, start with maybe a 3-day juice or tea or water fast. It doesn't have to be straight up water, all right? Now, there isn't going to be any solid food during this period of time, all right? So just do 3 days, enjoy some waters, some teas, some raw, unrefined juices, and then give yourself 2 weeks, and then try it again for another 3 days to a week. Now, I don't recommend fasting longer than 7 days, all right? And there are reasons why that we're going to talk about in later articles. But once you do break your fast, make sure you're breaking it with a conscious, melanated diet, all right? We've written about that as well. So that leads us to our next point. You gotta eat consciously if you're talking about developing your African spirituality. You know, there's a reason why spiritual leaders always talk about diet. Like, you have the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He wrote a book called How to Eat to Live. The reason is that your body and your spirit are connected. And the foods that you eat have a direct impact on your spiritual strength and your progress, fam. Eating consciously means eating foods and consuming drinks in ways that reflect your self-love. And that strengthens your spiritual ability to accomplish things in the physical world. So that means you need to reduce your meat, reduce your sugar, reduce your processed food consumption. All right? Becoming a vegetarian, which a vegetarian is a person who doesn't eat meat, but they can and see, this differs depending on who you ask and depending on the philosophy. So a vegetarian doesn't eat meat. That's pretty obvious. But they can eat animal products like milk, eggs that are unfertilized, so on and so forth, cheese. Vegans, they get rid of all of that. If it comes from an animal, vegans do not touch it. All right, so that means no milk, no cheese, no eggs. Now, the vegan diet might not be practical for you, and in fact, that vegan diet is missing a few vitamins and minerals that you can only find in meat. So vegans out there tend to either take supplements or they find other means of getting those missing vitamins and nutrients. Now, if you're doing the vegan thing because you're part of the cruelty-free movement, and that's what the whole vegan thing is sometimes about, it's about not causing harm to other living things. So typically, if you're a Buddhist, you're a vegan, because that's one of the tenets of their spiritual system. But if that's not why you're doing it, then I recommend integrating meat in the form of fish. So what we're talking about now is pescatarianism. So pescatarianism is the consumption of fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, grains, all the things that aren't associated with animal products, and then the only animal product you're throwing in there is fish, and I hope that makes sense. Now, there are some meats that you should be avoiding altogether. Ham, salami, sausages, hot dogs, beef, lamb, and pork. These are all Group 1 carcinogens, according to the World Health Organization. A carcinogen is a cancer-causing substance. Now, while ham, salami, sausages, and hot dogs, those are all definitely Group 1, red meat like beef, lamb, and pork, those are all classified as probable causes of cancer. And we know that cancer is a major issue in the black community. So avoid those meats at all costs. And that's what this melanin diet that I keep referring to is all about. It's about correcting the physical issues that we face as a community. But of course, we're talking about African spirituality right now. A major challenge that I encountered as I transitioned into a more spiritual diet was understanding what I could eat and how I was supposed to eat it, and I found myself going hungry. You could probably relate to this because I couldn't just swing through the drive-thru at my favorite fast food restaurant anymore, and I didn't know what I could make for myself. So here's the solution to that. Before you embark on this lifestyle, buy some cookbooks, fam. One of the ones that I use is by Queen Afua, who we have interviewed for our podcast in the past. She wrote a book called The City of Wellness, Restoring Your Health Through the 7 Kitchens of Consciousness. The book is a little pricey. It's about $20, but it is worth every penny. And so there you go. By studying, meditating, fasting, and eating consciously, you can develop your African spirituality faster than most religions will allow. If you are a Christian, you'll notice that a lot of what we talked about in just this recording isn't mentioned anywhere in Christianity, and that's because it's more dogma than it is spiritual development. But regardless, let me know where you're at in your spiritual walk. Let me know what you think about this recording. Let me know if you have anything to add. Leave your comments on this page, and if you're not on the page, if you're listening to this recording somewhere else, go to panafricanalliance.com and just do a search for African spirituality. You'll find this article. And leave me a comment. That way, we can start a dialogue together. All right, fam? Well, thanks for listening. I hope this has been a little more convenient for you than reading a 3,000-page article. And make sure you join the movement. We'll offer many courses that take this same format along with PDFs. It'll be an opportunity for you to communicate directly with me, and it'll be an opportunity for me to connect you with the rest of the family. So with that being said, family, Shem Hotep and Abibi Fahodie.